Bonjour à tous. Merci Martine de m'avoir invité de présider cette première section. Un coup d'œil vaut mieux qu'un discours, les images comme outil polyvalent de la recherche. Merci aussi de ma part à la Fondation de France. Malheureusement, en Allemagne, il n'existe pas une fondation d'Allemagne qui est comparable à la Fondation de France, qui s'engage tellement dans les sciences humaines et qui peut nous aider aussi de trouver des solutions en Allemagne, parce qu'en fait, on a les mêmes problèmes en Allemagne comme partout. Aussi à cause de la structure difficile de l'Allemagne, on n'est pas encore tellement avancé comme ici, chez vous en France. C'est un plaisir pour moi de présenter la première intervenante, c'est Nuria Rodriguez. Elle est présidente et professeure du département d'histoire de l'Université de Malaga, spécialisée en humanité numérique. Elle est vice-présidente de l'Association des humanités numériques et spécialiste confirmée de la Digital History, sur laquelle elle a publié d'importantes réflexions théoriques. Directrice du département d'histoire de l'art et du groupe de la recherche IATIS Lab, elle coordonne le réseau international d'études numériques sur la culture artistique, et elle parlera maintenant sur vision par ordinateur, neurosciences et la redéfinition des études visuelles en histoire de l'art, computer vision, neuroscience and redefinition of visual arts studies in art history. Je vous en prie.
Thank you so much. I don't know if this, okay. We will see if it is working. Yes. Okay, thank you so much, Martin de Noyel, and the organizers of this wonderful seminar. I am very happy to be here, and I have to say that it's a great responsibility to be the first. So, okay, I'm a little nervous, but I will try to do my best. Without doubt, one of the great expectations of the art history studies resides in the increasing capacity of the image processing technologies. Until recent time, these kind of technologies have had a limited application in the field of the digital humanities, and particularly in the field of digital art history, but recent developments in the field of the computer algorithms to process images, and especially in the field of computer vision, which is a branch of the deep learning techniques and the artificial intelligence revolution, along with increase in the hardware processing capacity, and along with the ability or the possibility that we have now to use images or to use a large set of images, advanced promising results. Before continuing, I would like to precise that although the title of my presentation of today mentions computer vision, I will adapt a much broader approach, and then I will speak about image processing technologies in a wider sense in general, and not only about computer vision, because it is only a specific technique that we have to process images. Okay. If we bear in mind that in our field in the art history, our primary subject of study is fundamentally constituted by visual material, by visual information, it's easy to understand that this new scenario deserves a special attention in our field. Indeed, we could say that we are witnessing like a kind of turning point in the field of the digital art history, because now we are able to directly process visual images, visual material, and not only metadata. That is what we have fundamentally focused on until now. I have to say that, and it is true that it is not a completely new field. We could mention many examples, among them, for example, the pioneering project carried out by William Vaughan in the 80s, when he built a pattern recognition tool to automatically recognize and identify quality, formal quality in the paintings that he called Morelli. And of course, we have to mention the experimental, sometimes controversial projects and researchers that Lev Manovich began to carry out more than a decade ago as part of his cultural analytics approach. But this thing that we feel that we are like in a new era, in a new age. Why? Firstly, because we are very aware that this kind of technologies open a rich range of possibilities for the study of the images and the visual culture. Without delving into technical detail, because we don't have enough time to do that in this presentation, I will say that these technologies are able, for example, to automatically recognize specific visual features, and then to select and classify and group the images according to these specific visual features. For example, here we can see the images displayed in the space, in the surface, according to the brightness mean and the saturation mean, and these allow us to make comparison between the evolution of the Marlowe and Mondrian's style. On the other hand, these technologies also allow us to detect similarities and differences in large set of images, also allow us to quantify the degree of the similarities and differences between images. They allow us to discover or to find visual or formal patterns in large set of images. For example, in this image, we can see in this correlation diagram that this dimension, the x-axis dimension, seems to correlate from figurative to abstract figures. And here in this dimension, we can see that the y-axis seems to correlate from linear to painterly paintings. We have here another example of distribution color in a specific images here or in different periods of time in this other this other diagram. And these technologies also are able to detect clusters of similar images, like in this example, where we can see the morphological clusters that result from the computation of the figures that are included in the panels of the Barbour's mnemosine. So it is clear that these technologies are very useful for art historians because, among other things, they allow us to detect aspects that have gone unnoticed until now, or to discover outsiders in the group of images. Also, they allow us to place the visual analysis of the images of the artworks in a much broader framework of comparison, or even to connect or to place the images in a galaxy of other images with which they are connected, and then to go beyond the idea of the artworks as a single visual unit. And also they allow us to investigate the reuse of the similar visual elements, and then investigate how, or the different ways that the same visual element produces meaning when it is located in different contexts or in different styles. These technologies also allow us to track or to monitorize the changes in the visual structures over time, or to investigate the patterns that have mostly shaped our visual culture. So the thing is that all these researchers, all these investigation, give us like a new visual syntax forms that allow us to make complex visual arguments. For example, now we can propose discussions about processes of canonicity or mainstreams according to the greater or lesser concentration of the similar images in specific collections on archives, like in this example that has taken from the Dallas Museum of Art. Or, for example, these also we can propose discussions about the dialectic or the interplay between unity and heterogeneity in the evolvement of the morphologies. For example, here in this image, we can see how, over here, the formal heterogeneity that is embedded in a specific formal model that has taken from the figures that are included in the Barbour's mnemosine. And of course, we can rethink from a computational terms the traditional art historical concept that we have used for the interpretation of the images. So here we can see a computational confrontation between the computational results and the popular pair of concepts proposed by Goldfling many time ago. And of course, we we need also to mention the new ways of exploring the collections that museums and cultural institutions are investigating beyond the use of the traditional words and categories for the description and the classification of the images, and that involve a new relation with the cultural heritage much more mediated by its formal and visual dimension. So we have ahead of us many research possibilities to pose new questions in the field of art history, but at the same time to redefine traditional questions. But secondly, and this is the issue that I would like to especially remark in my presentation of today, the introduction of these techniques, of these technologies in the field of art history also entails important intellectual challenges for art historians because they involve significant epistemological redefinitions of the discipline, epistemological consequences that deserve a thorough critical reflection. In other words, we need to think about how is it modified, epistemologically speaking, the visual analysis of the images of the artistic culture in this new scenario, and to what extent the notion that we have of art history as a cultural history of the images will change. Very briefly, I will address three ideas that I consider key issues in this new scenario, but of course many other questions could be considered because we really face a complex subject. The first issue has to do with the ontological change experimented by the status of the images when the material of our analysis is no longer the image understood as a unit, as a whole, as something that it is intelligible in itself, but what we have is a mass of information in form of bytes, pixels, etc., that can be algorithmically processed. So this ontological change involves, first and foremost, that the visual analysis of the images is determined or defined mainly by a measurement, quantification, and mathematical calculation. That now becomes fundamental values for the interpretation of the visual complexity. Therefore, when we analyze the images from this perspective, the first thing that we have to do is like a kind of mathematical translation. We need to reformulate in mathematical terms the visual question that we want to interrogate. For example, in this research that I have mentioned before, the question posed by the authors was, how do the color contrast relation evolve in the Western pictorial production for a long period of time? So the authors, instead of visually compare the images in the traditional way, as we can see at the bottom of the slide, develop a specific algorithms to compute the interpixel color distances, and they resulted in a specific quantity that they call seamlessness that measure the color relation contrast, and this becomes a useful indicator to track or to monitorize the changes experimented by the visual structure according to the specific visual feature. And here we have another example that I have taken from a project that we are just starting at the University of Malaga. So the morphologies here, the Picasso's drawing, is analytically segmented into its descriptive informative items that are mainly lines, and then it is transformed into a matrix. This is just the material that we have to analyze in next future to explore how the morphologies evolve in the Picasso's drawing. So this change in the way we see, in the way we analyze images involves that beyond the need to reformulate in mathematical terms a specific or particular visual question, we need to develop a new understanding framework for images, mainly defined by statistical methods, measure models, algorithmic indices that allow us to quantitatively characterize the visual features and the visual structures of the artistic culture in a way that produce significant meaning from the point of view of the art history. So we need to combine the potentialities of the quantitative, the computer science, the computer vision, and at the same time those critical inquiries that are important from art historians. And this involves that they need to explore the appropriate measures to quantitatively characterize and define the images of the visual culture, the artistic culture, should be one of the main tasks in the agenda of art historians in years to come. Let's return to the previous example. The observations resulting from the algorithm that the authors developed led the author to propose a new category that they call morphosality. Morphosality is a new category that measures the degree of transformation of color throughout the artist's career. In negative terms, less color contrast, or in positive terms, more color contrast. So we have now a new parameter to make comparisons between artists and, or according to this measure, and also a new parameter to interpret artistic practices, creative processes, and also the evolution of the visual culture. So the development of this new quantitative framework is producing at the same time, and this is the second issue that I would like to address today, an epistemological expansion of the art history, because we need to build new categories that are able to explain the visual phenomena that we observe when processing images. At the same time, we have seen that other researchers, other studies are proposing computational redefinition of traditional art historical concepts. So this quantitative framework becomes a new categorical system for images. And it is very important for us because we can agree or disagree with these new categories, with this redefinition, but in fact it is like the natural way through which the discipline epistemologically evolved. So under my perspective, the point here is not the correctness or wrongness of the categories or the redefinitions that are proposed, but the fact that the art historian need to be part of the conversation, need to contribute from their own point of view for this new discussion or this new conversation to generate, to maintain or to keep a dialogue with other disciplines, computer science, computer vision, to generate like a new kind of branch of knowledge. I am going to finish. The third, this is the last. The third issue that I'd like to address today has to do with the change experimented by the knowledge production system, which in our post-digital society has become a hybrid ecology, where humans being no longer holds the central position. So we need to rethink how it's modified the way we see and the way we think the images in a new knowledge system where human beings and non-human beings, such as algorithms, neural networks, programming languages, etc., are also all of them involved in the production of the visual knowledge. So the first thing that we need to ask ourselves is how the traditional intellectual mechanism that we have used to interpret the images, classification, comparison, etc., is modified when they are carried out by machines without direct human interaction. Let me show you a little example. Last year, I made an experiment with my postgraduate students. So we decided to see with other similar images. It could be in internet and to match with the Guernica. And then we used Pinterest, and we got this result. And we thought, okay, this doesn't any make sense. It doesn't work because there is no connection. Of course, this didn't make any sense because we were seeing the Guernica, its figure, its history, its iconography, its symbolism, etc. And when we began to look at the painting beyond these intermediary categories, we realized that, in effect, there was a surprising visual connection between the Guernica and these wallpapers as same barcodes. So maybe it may be a very anecdotal example, and maybe it is. But what I want to emphasize here is that the confrontation between how the human vision is configured and how the machine sees give us new material to go in depth in the mechanisms that underlie the processes of seeing and the different cultural and epistemological layer that overlap the human vision. And this called our attention that we need to think about how in which way these new technological materialities act as agencies in the production of the visual knowledge, and how we can go, or should we go, towards a reconciliation between computer reasoning and human cognition. In a critical sense, I mean, being conscious about the limitations of the codes, the algorithms, the neural network, etc. We have to take into account found that the computer vision is not a neutral vision, it's a built vision according to the algorithms that I have designed following a specific criteria. Also according to the set of images that we are using to feed the deep learning techniques, but also in a propositional sense. I mean promoting new contexts where to hybridize the production of traditional knowledge with processes of artificial intelligence, machine learning techniques, computational creativity, etc. So we have ahead of us a fascinating future in intellectual, methodological, and epistemological trend, but nothing of that is possible if we don't have good collections of images, well-annotated collections of images, clean collections of images, high-resolution collections of images, open collections of images. So that's why this seminar is so important. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. On a discuté d'organiser une discussion à la fin de la section, mais s'il y a des questions urgentes ou des remarques tout de suite, alors peut-être pour une ou deux remarques, on a le temps. Sinon, je ne vois personne, sinon on passe à la prochaine intervention. Pardon? Oh, pardon.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. One of the things that was extremely exciting to me is the implication of the necessity of open access to images for the manipulation for new knowledge.
Yes, it is.
So I realize that your presentation, that this is the purpose of it in this context, but could you say a little bit more about the need for open access and freedom from concern about copyright constraints or other limitations in order for this type of work to go forward?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you. One, well, I would say two things. One of these is that these image processing technologies are very involved in the quality of the images. So the result that we can get from these technologies are very in connection with how the quality, how the resolution of the images is. And at the same time, the other problem, and I am very concerned about that, is the biases that we can't get from these technologies, because we have a very biased set of collection of images, very Western collection of images. So the result that we are going to get from these technologies, it will be also biased and will be also Western and will also with the same problems that we have had in the 20th century. So of course, this is one of the, for me, 2 points, important points for promoting the open access. First, good collection of images, high resolution collection of images, well annotated collection of images, because we have semantically enriched collection of images. The possibilities that we have to produce new knowledge will be higher, of course. And second is the problem of the bias. If we have only a specific set of collections of images, so the result that we will have will be also biased as well.